Big thanks for joining me on TMI Tuesday. And like I did say, we're going to be looking at exiting economic recession in Nigeria with special focus on the task before President Muhammadu Buhari. And I'm your host, Philip Omo-Gubon. I've been joined by a finance expert, a lecturer at University of Benin, and he is Dr. Nosakai Ikwamosa. Thanks for joining me, Nosa.
Thank you for having me on your program.
Let's look at what has been coming up. Just recently, recent data shows that we had 3.6 contraction in our GDP, and just after we had 6.1% in the previous quarter. What does this portend for our economy?
Basically, this portends that we are in their situation in Nigeria. If you look at the figures, it doesn't show that all is well at the moment. Let me just say that some of us actually saw this coming. It's not something that should be a surprise to economic watchers and policymakers, particularly when you look at the numbers in the economy generally. For instance, over the years, let me say over the past 5 years, there has been an inverse relationship between the level of external debt and our external reserve. What that means is that our external debt has been growing consistently for the past 5 years, while external reserve that's supposed to serve as a buffer to cushion economic exigencies have been depleting.
Okay.
So
what has been put forward is that is being attributable to the COVID-19 crisis. Do you see that as a reason that is tenable for a polity as such as Nigeria?
Yes, of course. The COVID-19 pandemic and also the falling of the price of oil is part of the things that I would say are the immediate causes of the recession that we have now found ourselves in. Following the incidence of COVID-19 pandemic, there has been a drop in economic activities, as we all know. Also, that also impacted adversely on the price of crude oil, which is the mainstay of the Nigerian economy. So anyone who makes that assertion definitely will not be wrong. But of course, over the years, we have had the opportunity to also show up our buffer stock, i.e. the external reserve, and also the sovereign wealth fund, for instance, that is divided into 3 buckets, the future fund, the infrastructure fund, and very importantly to what we are discussing this morning, the economic stabilization fund, which we ought to have been funding before this time, so that during this period of shock or economic recession, we can easily fall back. But unfortunately, that has not happened. That has not been the case. So when the COVID-19 struck, of course, our revenue was significantly impacted adversely, and of course, there's nothing to fall back upon them. So definitely, we now find ourselves in the economic.
Okay, you spoke about the external reserves that have been depleted in the sovereign wealth fund, and basically, in a summary, you are saying that a government that is proactive wouldn't experience such as a result of the COVID-19 crisis,
basically,
put together by the crude oil that also fell in terms of the price. Yeah. But will you say that is as a result of also poor economic decisions by the President Muhammadu Buhari-led government?
I would not say it's so much of a problem of economic decision, because economic decision, economic planning, all of that has always been on the table. It has to do more with implementation and the goodwill on the part of government. I think that is to blame. Nigeria, we have some of the best minds in terms of policy formulation, policy making, but the bane of economic growth challenges in Nigeria has always been that of implementation. And I think that's one aspect that all key players need to put all hands need to be on deck to lead us out of the present crisis that we have now found ourselves. Urgently so.
Okay, the federal government did say that they are looking up to the private sector to partner with it in terms of the sustainable plan that it has to take us out of recession. What do you think is the bit of the private sector in this?
Of course, the private sector has a role to play, in the sense that most of the funds, if you look at it, most of the larger population of citizens are actually employed by the private sector. And of course, the only ray of hope that we even have at the moment is the fact that the private sector in Nigeria, the domestic economy, seem to be actually having some level of confidence in the economy. If you look at what has been happening in recent time, the likes of Boa Group, Dangote Group, even Transcorp, they are making investments, or they have planned to make investments, even in this dire or critical period, in the cement industry, even oil and gas, and the power sector. So the fact that the domestic investors have some level of confidence because they understand the way our economy works. You understand? That is about the only ray of hope we have at the moment, because if you look at what is happening, the foreign investors, both in terms of foreign direct investment, foreign portfolio investment, they seem to have retracted, from Nigerian economy. The level of foreign capital inflow have been reduced significantly.
What do you think is attributable for the reasons for that?
Basically, it has to do with the economic indices and a whole lot of other factors like level of insecurity, policy inconsistency, sometimes on the part of government. Take for instance what happened to MTN when the Nigerian government slammed a fine of about $10 trillion on MTN. So all of that kind of make foreign investors to become jittery. Are you getting it? So we should be making policies that will actually encourage foreign investors. So when you look at the level of insecurity, policy inconsistency, that kind of make foreign investors to be scared, because they are not for that Christmas. When they make investment, they want to be able to get money back.
And they want to ensure that their investment is secured.
Exactly. So once there's a shock in domestic economy, chances are that foreign portfolio investment and foreign direct investment would want to take a flight to safer climes.
So by that you are saying that insecurity also counts in terms of getting us where we are now?
Exactly. Of course, a business does not thrive in a vacuum. You understand? A business thrives in an environment. So when the environment is not safe, you understand, nobody will want to continue to make investments, particularly foreign investors.
Okay. Yeah. You spoke about the big players in terms of the private sector. What about the small players, the medium-scale enterprises, small and medium-scale enterprises? Don't they count?
Of course, they can, because they actually employ a larger number of population. What government have actually intended to do in terms of policy, we have had a lot of programs and policies put in place by government. For instance, there was the Market Women Fund. We also have SME fund by the Central Bank of Nigeria.
Okay, so about intervention programs by federal government.
Thank you.
Are you saying that that is key?
Of course, it's very key. The only challenge is that the means of recruiting or of the means of getting beneficiaries, to my understanding, is not scientific. A whole lot of politics, in lack of transparency comes into play. So you just hear that people have been getting stimulus package and all of that, but it doesn't really trickle down to the ordinary man on the street or SMEs. I think that is one aspect that government should have actually taken the issue of stimulus very seriously. For instance,
stimulus packages.
Thank you.
Okay.
Looking at the way our economy works, we don't really have data. You understand? So we don't really have a centralized system of data where government can easily transfer money to beneficiaries.
Which is a setback. Which is a setback.
Thank you. The way you have in developed countries.
Yes.
You understand? So it appears to me that the major way that government can actually transfer money to the poor is through maybe fuel subsidy and even low electricity tariff, because these are two commodities that almost everybody in the economy consumes. Are you getting it? So unfortunately,
which is skyrocketing.
Thank you. We even find ourselves in a situation whereby during this hard economic hardship is when government took the initiative to now even increase fuel and electricity tariff, further causing hardship to the generality of the people. It's really, really unfortunate.
Okay, so you're talking about bring back the subsidy, fuel subsidy, in order to bridge the gap.
Thank you.
Okay, so but let's look at the aspect of the recent one by the federal government, where it said that 774,000 jobs will be deployed along the 774 local governments, making 1,000 per local government. Do you see that as a cushioning effect also?
Of course, if government is able to match actions with words, that would be a cushioning effect. But in the long term, what needs to be done is for the government to actually provide a level playing field and enabling environment for businesses to thrive, because the world over it is now significantly recognized that it is the private sector that can actually drive the economy, that can be the prime motor of the economy. There's not much government can do in terms of direct employment. What is more important is government to provide the enabling environment in terms of infrastructure, electricity, road, and all of that. And of course, that's what policymakers have been clamoring for in Nigeria over the years.
In case you're just joining me, it's TMI Tuesday, and we're looking at exiting economic recession in Nigeria, with special focus on the task before Buhari. And I've been speaking with a finance expert, Dr. Nosakari Pomosa, who is also a lecturer at University of Benin. Now, let's look at the diversification economy, diversification of the economy, as tied by President Muhammadu Buhari? Do you see that as impactful? Because we've been totally reliant on the oil revenue.
Now, the figures have not shown that the effort made by government in terms of diversifying the economy has yielded any meaningful progress or result. You know, if you look at the budget of that is put forward in 2021, you discover that the chunk of revenue, expected revenue, is still expected to come from the oil sector, from foreign exchange earnings from the oil sector. So while some persons have actually argued that the Nigerian economy is actually diversified, of course, if you look at the level of this sectoral employment, for instance, you can say that the agricultural sector employs more people. But when you now talk in terms of revenue earnings, you discover that it is the oil sector that still is the cash cow, where government gets a significant chunk of our own revenue.
Okay.
You know, so to that extent, one would say that the diversification plan put forward by this present administration has not yielded any significant results.
Okay, we'll look at this the skyrocketing inflation in the country. As we put this segment of discussion to a wrap, what do you think the CBN should inject as policies in order to make a viral economy?
Yeah, first of all, let me say that Nigeria is an economy where we find ourselves in a very absurd situation. In economic parlance, there's what we call economic stagflation. We find ourselves in a situation where unemployment and inflation are rising pari passu, so they are rising together.
Okay.
It's not supposed to be like that. During period of economic growth, we are supposed to have a situation where there will be increase in level of employment, as in reduction in level of unemployment, and then increase in level of inflation. It's at that point the government will now implement what we call contractionary monetary policy.
Okay.
For instance, they can increase the level of interest rates and also reduce the amount of money in circulation. That will now help to cushion the level of inflation. But what we are faced with is a situation whereby the economy, even during period of economic growth, when we in record period of increase in GDP,
yes,
you still find that inflation was rising. Now, both unemployment and inflation are now rising together. Are you getting? So what
at same pace?
At the same pace. So therefore, what government needs to do is what synergy of policy, both fiscal policy on the part of the executive arm of government.
Yeah.
Are you getting it? Fiscal discipline on the part of the executive arm of government,
Fiscal
as well as tight monetary policy. So there should be a policy mix.
Okay.
Government, both the monetary authorities and the fiscal authorities, need to sit down and strike a balance, you understand, between government spending as well as monetary policy, so that we'll be able to, there should be what we call input outputs. It should balance. There should be the input should balance with also what the output, so that at the end of the day we'll be able to weather the storm. But really, if you look at the numbers, the way it is now, it appears to me that we are just going to continue to manage the situation and hope that oil prices increase in the years future to bring some level of
just to wrap up, recently the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Mrs. Ahmed Zainab, did say that by first quarter of the year 2021, we could be having fresh air out of recession. Do you believe that will be possible?
If you look at the numbers, I don't see that happening unless if there is a significant increase in oil price.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Nosakara Ekmamosa, for taking our time to be part of this show.
Thank you.
Well, it's still TMI Tuesday. Stay with me.